So first, tell us about yourself and why you are running to represent Congressional District 5.
Absolutely. So again, I'm Elizabeth Lee. I am a mom to three kids. I am a board certified women's health and reproductive and infertility nurse, and I'm also a board certified patient advocate. I come from a very small town in Ohio where my parents were union laborers and we still really barely made ends meet. Um, Combine that with I was born with a rare genetic illness that I didn't discover until I became a nurse. So, and at age 37, I cracked the code myself. So you
Wow.
put that whole picture together, and I have had to fight for everything my entire life. And I always have wanted to fight for other people. And that's what led me. Initially, I got an undergraduate degree in psychology and I was working in business operations. And while I really enjoyed it and I loved everything I learned, I felt this just pull to do more to support people. And that's what led me actually as a second career to go into nursing. And then I had a business hat and a clinical hat, and that really led me down some lanes of not only things I had seen and experienced myself as a patient that lacked the access to healthcare that they needed, but I was seeing that play over and over again in my clinical practice, both at big hospitals and clinics. And when Roe v. Wade was overturned, and then when the Big Beautiful Bill was passed, those were two huge pieces of legislation that changed the trajectory of everything that I care about, which is healthcare and women's health. And so I really just started advocating on a policy level at the national level and started to get asked to run. Um, I did not come up with this idea. I said yes, I think on maybe the 10th or 11th ask. And so when it was simply people said to me, you do such an amazing job at building systems that work at scale, you need to take this to Congress. Like right now, we have this moment in time where we must come together and we must pass things that are going to actually help real people. And so finally I said yes.
Well, great. So focusing on the business community, what do you see as the federal government's role in fostering economic development in Gilbert?
Well, that's such a great question because Gilbert, we chose to move to Gilbert from Tempe in 2017 because Gilbert was nationally ranked as like one of the best places to raise a family, one of the best places to live. And so, in terms of the how the federal government should be involved in fostering that, I believe starts with investment in local and state programs that support workforce development, that support small businesses, because every small business owner I talk to says and I know from owning my own business that it's really hard to make it as a small business. And I think that there are not enough programs and uh, incentives for people starting small businesses that helps us all if we do it right. So I think that the federal government's involvement should be to ensure that there's enough funding to support those programs so that so cities can support the development of their small businesses.
Great. How would you work to ensure federal support for education and workforce development in our community?
Well, that's a huge passion of mine because my kids are, in the public school system here, and I see that our kids are getting $5,000 less funding per year than the average student across the US. And you have to ask yourself, why is that? And from a state perspective, especially from a state legislature perspective, the runaway voucher program has really, really hurt community schools. And I hear it from the teachers that I talk to, my kids' teachers and other teachers. When you see schools in a place like Gilbert close, you really have to ask yourself, why is that happening? Um, and so I think that one thing we all need to be doing is working together at all levels of government, everything from school board up to the federal seats. But having more legislators that are working together to ensure that the state legislature is not handicapping the students of this district and the teachers of this district, because teachers of this district are spending $1,000 out of pocket every year to ensure that their classrooms function. Um, and there again, as a result. I mean, the federal government has destroyed the Department of Education. And you add that to what's happening at a state legislature level, that tells me we need a lot more uh, coalition building between um, not just all levels of government, but even then plugging in groups like chambers of commerce and different, hospital groups and people who are stakeholders, actual co-governance. If we worked that way, I think we would have, um, I think our students would be stronger. I think our teachers would be stronger. And so from a federal level, one of the first things that I think we have to do is restore the Department of Education and restore the funding that the federal government was providing states, because we already, as I said, we were already really struggling as a state. And so that's only getting worse. And you see it when you see schools close. There's a school right down the street from me that's closing.
Well, I know that when it comes to education and these kids, I mean, they can't have a building without the reliable, sustainable energy and water resources, right? So,
Yeah.
what steps will you take to help secure reliable, affordable, and sustainable energy and water resources to support business growth in Gilbert and Arizona?
Yeah, no, listen, that's a non-negotiable. Long-term water security and energy security is non-negotiable, because even with schools, look at gas prices and what that's doing to schools' operating budgets right now. I think investment in infrastructure in Gilbert that protects economic growth has to. I think folks have to see, when you grow without the water security that you need, your investment is at risk. And that's the language that businesses speak in terms of what's in it for me. And I think coming to the table with real facts about the reality of the water futures that we're all facing, not just here, because what I think something we do wrong is we think very like nuclear in terms of like our city or our district, but what happens across Arizona, and overdrawing their water tables, that is downstream, is somehow going to affect us. And businesses can plan around pretty much anything except for unpredictability. So I think that we need to, as a community, decide how we're going to protect Gilbert from things that are going to drain those resources. Things like AI data centers, which I'm certainly want to make for the record, I'm not against, but I am against putting them in places where they're going to tap into resources we don't have, quite frankly. And that happened in Chandler a couple of months ago. And because Chandler's in the district and because I care, I held city council, we held them in 5 hours of public comment to let them know that our water security has to come first. And they made the right choice. So I think we have to protect ourselves against threats to our current water situation. And I think we have to extend the hands out in communities and counties all around us to make sure that as a state um, we have the water future we need. And factually, because I think that there's been some misinformation about um, making promises about having enough water when we don't. And I think we have to really dig in and weed out of nurses or evidence-based people. I like to dig into okay, bring me the facts. I'm not going to make up an answer on this. Like, bring me the facts and let's look at them. And then let's be honest with people about what we can and can't do from a housing development situation and beyond.
Well, to that, because you're in the healthcare industry, affordable healthcare and housing, along with effective immigration policies, are essential to maintaining a strong workforce. How should the federal government address these needs?
Oh, you hit on three different things, very big pockets there, my friend. Housing, healthcare, and immigration. Um, Gosh, I mean, where do you start? There's something called Maslow's hierarchy of need, and if people don't have their
Right.
very basic needs met, it's very hard for them to be amazing, community contributors. So I think healthcare is probably the most basic foundation of everything else, because good healthcare policy is good economic policy. It's good education policy. Sick teachers are not going to do the greatest job teaching my kid algebra today. Um, so, but I also think our immigration system has become a very unfortunate breakdown of a very, very, very poorly done system that has not kept up with what was actually happening at the border. That we now have, we're holding people in cells and for very long periods of time, very inhumanely, and that ties to, I think, housing is also healthcare. They're on the hierarchy of needs. If you don't have a place to lay your head down at night, you don't have a reliable source of food, and you don't have reliable access to healthcare, you are clawing by day by day by day. And I think even those of us in this call, some of us are probably just one, accident away from being unhoused or from losing our healthcare. Um, and maybe even, I don't know, but getting caught up somehow in the immigration system. I mean, we're taking actual American citizens sometimes and, detaining them for a while. So, I think, especially being a border state, we have to look really hard at our current border. I mean, obviously, we're not in a border district or a border city, but what we do at the border really affects us in Gilbert and at Arizona at large. But I think we do need to look at how we are using our border enforcement tools to effectively manage the border. A bunch of people who got caught up in a bad system, no matter which party's fault it was or however, we do not abandon human rights. And that's just a non-negotiable for me. If I knocked on one of y'all's door at the hospital, you were a patient, the last thing I'm going to check is your party registration before I decide the type of care I'm going to give you. And I think if we all were held to that standard, especially when it came to those three topics, housing, healthcare, and immigration, I mean, these are basic human functions that until we get a handle on them, we will continue to fight the same societal problems that have plagued us for a long time. Sorry, that was a bit long, but that was 3 things in 2 minutes, okay? And there are 3 things I'm wildly, wildly passionate about. I'm actually doing pro bono patient advocacy for some of the people that are being denied custody, because there is so much medical neglect, and they need somebody to fight for them.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Next question. What actions will you take to promote the efficient government policies and a business-friendly tax structure?
Ask the question again. I just want to make sure I got the whole thing.
You bet. What actions will you take to promote efficient government policies and a business-friendly tax structure?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think that there again, we have to look at our overall tax structure as a whole. There's plenty of money to reduce the waste and delay that allows for big corporations to take advantage of the tax laws and small businesses to get hurt by those. So I think one of the biggest roles, especially that would be from my position in Congress, is an oversight role. Congress has the clear directive of conducting oversight. And when we audit, I think programs that eliminate, let's say, I'm big about efficiency, and I think there's a bunch of inefficiencies in government policy that stop up small business owners because they don't have huge tax firms and places like that are able to weave them through, tax code that they don't understand. I mean, as a small business owner myself, but as a clinician, that's a real hardship is understanding those things. So I think we must simplify the regulatory processes that are out there so small businesses, healthcare providers can overall spend less time on paperwork. we have such outdated systems too. And we're living in one of the most technology rich environments we've ever been in. So we need to meet the moment because all of the inefficiencies in government, last year we had this big government thing like let's go after inefficiencies. And unfortunately, I think in many cases we created a whole bunch of new inefficiencies. But those are the things that are costing the government time, money, trust. If we can streamline that across the board, businesses and their outcomes can improve for everybody. And I think regarding tax specifically, I think targeted tax relief for small businesses and mid-sized businesses, expanding capital for startups. That's a huge. I've been a part of a number of startup healthcare organizations that were aimed at expanding access to infertility care across the country. And capital is just such a kneecapping reality for so many small businesses that they ultimately can't grow because they just don't have the access to it. So how can we set up programs? I'm sorry, is somebody trying to say something? Okay, there was like a small echo, and I didn't want to talk over anybody. But yeah, so I think that capital is a big thing in expanding that capital and making sure that we do have fair but targeted tax relief for small businesses. They honestly, when you look around Gilbert, our small businesses are the backbone of this city. And it is incumbent upon all of us to support and have programs that support real hardworking people. And unfortunately, we've just, I think, especially from a federal tax perspective, have sort of just gone off the ranch and given tax cuts kind of to the wrong group of people. And a fair and predictable tax structure is a business plus to everybody.
Final question, Elizabeth. How will you stay connected with and responsive to the Gilbert business community? Can you provide us some examples, please?
Absolutely. I mean, something that I'm most proud of in terms of my candidacy for this role, two things. One, my family and I made a commitment or a decision that I would not work during this time, that I would donate this year of my life to this big moment to try to meet this moment. And that has looked like me showing up absolutely everywhere all the time. The best compliment people give me is like, holy cow, you're everywhere. Oh my gosh. I'm everywhere because if I don't understand what keeps you up at night, that's kind of a little phrase I use, then I cannot go represent you in Congress. So, I try to come to a lot of the different across the whole district, not just Gilbert, chamber events. I attend city council meetings or town council meetings in our case, whenever possible. I knock a lot of doors. I've knocked a lot more doors than most candidates because I believe that that's where I get the information to actually be your representative. So I showing up and listening and asking questions and trying to put myself in as many different groups of people as possible. So everybody from, we've done a lot of work in assisted living, where a lot of times folks don't go to those people and talk to them about their concerns. We've targeted some small businesses across the district and highlighted them on social media and talked a little bit more about their why. Why did you get into this? And what's hard about being a business owner right now? And just joining hands with people and building true coalition, I think, is the way that you elect and send somebody to Congress. Because a lot of it is about solutions. And also, January of next year is a long way from now. What you really are electing is the character, the grit, the fight, and the proven history of showing up for people when they need you. And that has also looked like there's a phenomenal group in Gilbert. It's a women's networking group. It's run by Heather Ferrari, and it's just blowing up. It's so beautiful because there's women of every different business background, and it is so fun to build each other up and learn about each other. And I show up at PTA meetings. I'm a Boy Scout den leader. I have invested my family and we have invested our lives in Gilbert. And so for me, I showed up like that even before I ran for office. That's just who I am.